beginning to hope you may get out of this pool still?
Yeah, we've got to, with a proud group, and we in every competition we go there till the last, and we realise we're up against it. There's no hiding that, but it's a different competition for us. It's the ultimate competition. It's what all teams strive for within it. So we will just go there and give it our utmost.
What you learned from that first game against, obviously quite familiar with Northampton, but specifically that encounter at Franklin's Gardens, which didn't go your way. What did you draw from that for this rematch?
Yeah, I mean we spoke about the physical challenge, and you've got to go to the extremes really. And I think in terms of Europe, they're up there as one of the top end physical sides, and you get drawn into an arm wrestle with them, which you've got to go through. But within that as well, there's parts of your kicking game you've got to get right. We had a clear strategy going in, but we just didn't execute it accurately enough. We allowed their back three to come back at us time and time again, and even though normally our kick chase is a strength of ours, there was a few holes that we couldn't plug that day, and that was just relentless. And so any sort of moments we had ball in hand, and we did create a couple of opportunities. Dan had a couple of line breaks, but it was all fleeting. There was never any sustained moments of pressure. And, you've got to, as Sale did on the weekend, almost go for the full 85-90 minutes.
George obviously capitalised on that back three space you talked about, so to negate the kind of threat that he poses, is it something about targeting him or defending him in a particular way, or defending against Northampton as a whole in a particular way?
It's the whole game, I think. You've got to get your set piece game right in terms of winning ball, and then trying to play on the front foot. You play on the front foot, you ask questions with ball in hand, but you can open up kicking channels then you can start to pressure not just George but other players in terms of where you may find space. But you've also got to be clear with the team in terms of whether you're going to the air or whether you're trying to go downtown. But again, these questions become easier when you're starting to create a little bit of speed in what you're doing, and also take care of the ruck area, which again was a massive factor up there. Callum Clark, Tom Wood, they caused us 17 problems, and that was a lot of poor attack with poor numbers.
Everyone's raved about your half-backs this year for good reason, but in that game, was that the most pressure they've been put under this year?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something the English sides do well. We've played Saracens in pre-season and in the LV. And to be fair, we've seen it recently as well from the Welsh sides. They've had a real good go at our half-backs. And we've got to manage that as a team, really, and how we protect them. Because they're still a focal point of what we do. And when we attack, you saw the Dragons on the weekend. Teams do focus on our half-backs, and it can create space. I'm thrilled seeing forwards make line breaks at the moment, because teams are arrowing in on the half-backs, Josh Matavesi, and it does open up gaps elsewhere. So it has its advantages for us, but also again goes back to where and how we're trying to kick the ball, and not just those guys. I think sometimes it's easy to defend a side that just kicks from 9 and 10. We have got to have a bit of boldness, and we want to see Josh and Dan Evans as well as a world-class kicker, where we can get him on the ball and kick effectively.
Griff, how do you assess your form going into this game?
It's been up and down. It's been a hell of a period in terms of games we've had. We really enjoyed the Racing games back-to-back in Europe. They came off the back of a pretty tough autumn for us, and obviously players coming back internationally. But they had a real vibrancy about them, which we took to a certain degree around the Ulster game. And then within a period where we're coming into work, we're still excited about what we're doing. But the Derby games have been stop-start affairs, and we've had to accept some parts of what we can control around those, which meant we haven't been able to flourish as we'd like. But we've put points back on the board last weekend, and at some point you've just got to take that, move on. And as I said, we go into a European competition. We really enjoyed the Racing games, and we hope to be in a high intense game with some good home support this weekend that again we can respond to in a positive way.
Griff, the scrums have been a problem. You substituted Dimitri in the last one. Is it a worry for this game?
Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the ideal in outcomes really in terms of the way I look at our attack, and obviously in the last couple of games, outcomes have gone against us. But there's considerable learning going in. There's perhaps different players getting opportunities. We've seen different loose heads come to the fore recently, having to learn on the hoof, and Dimitri as well going with a different hooker last weekend. But we're trying to freshen the group as well, whilst being consistent with our learning, and we're not always getting it right perhaps, but I think down the track this group can become an effective set piece team. But I think it's a huge area for us, and something the forwards have spoke long and hard about this morning.
Lynn called it the scourge of the game, the scrum after the match, called it a farce as well. As a coach, is it as frustrating watching for you as it is perhaps the public watching?
100%. I'm by and large an attacking coach who wants to see the ball put through the hands, and obviously, see us controlling areas with smart rugby as well. But you can't do that when, obviously the whistle prevails around scrum time. And truth be told, we don't practice much scrum attack because our time is at a premium, and I think you concentrate on an area you're going to do on the weekend. At the moment, we don't have scrum attack to play off. We had one on the weekend perhaps where we moved the ball, but as I said, it's something that can drag you down, and you try not let it do so as a coach, but it invariably creeps in.
So being an attack coach, just like in the that game in October, have you seen many better individual displays from the back than that? George's in the first game.
No, it was outstanding, and we're blessed in Wales. I think I love seeing him in that red shirt, but it's a challenge in terms of Northampton. Did most of his damage actually, even though we flagged up the counter attack. Did most of his damage as a 13 that game, which was interesting. Where he popped up in different areas because often back three, if you get it right, as I said, around the kick and where you can squeeze sides, there can be pressure on opposition wingers. But as a 13 there, he had a more of a free role really and caused real problems.
You of course had to make a change later, didn't you, before that game in the back division? You injured your injury problem wings centre, didn't you? So your usual sort of defensive setting wasn't as it would be.
No, you're right. It's something we trained and we'd been exploring the early season behind the scenes, but to do it on the morning of a game up there was harsh on Jeff. As I said, we had kick chase issues, but he was just a byproduct of that really. It certainly didn't help, and Andrew Bishop, who would have played, does such a good job for us, and we're missing him actually in one way at the moment as well. But yeah, certainly it was not an area we were enjoying that day.
Gruff, how much will you miss Dan with you this weekend? He seems to be set now.
Yeah, I'm enjoying his contribution. He was obviously not fully au fait with some of our systems and patterns coming in, but he's asking a lot of good questions, wants to learn. His carrying game through contact is impressing me, the yards he's making there. And as I said earlier, he's picked a real good line where opposition are focusing on backs, and he's really receptive to where we feel he can develop his games in those channels as a ball carrier for us. Not to mention, I think you guys have mentioned it, the back row were magnificent as a unit as well. Defensively, apart from one set in our 22, I thought we coped pretty comfortably with the Dragon side, who asked a couple of questions. There's good players there, but it was probably our best balance showing in defence for a while.
With a lot of players, said they're going to play a lot of rugby recently, and Alan Wynn's played literally 9 or 8 games, 10 games in a row. How difficult as a coach is it to get the balance between people fresh, whilst needing to do things in training during the week? How tough is it? Yeah,
definitely. We are trying to freshen them up in training. They don't have as many minutes on the training field. And we tried to freshen up selection in one or two areas, but we realised we need our talisman, him in particular, to be leading from the front. I think it's perhaps looking at the games themselves, let's be honest, they haven't been free-flowing affairs, so the games itself probably aren't as draining to these guys who are used to playing that and above. It's probably more the mental processes of preparing for the game, the come down after the game, and how we manage the training week, which we're looking at all and everything to help these guys. But it's a huge challenge for us, and it's not going to go away. Hopefully the guys can have a successful Six Nations, and we've got to think long and hard about our running, hopefully for the trophy as well, and where we can get the balance. Ultimately we need perhaps a bit more depth and luck with injuries as well, but we'll see how that develops.
Can't really get depth through the season.
Not given perhaps how the situation has been over the last couple of years. We've just been hanging in there, and I think our record shows that when we put our best side on the park, we're very rarely losing league games in particular. But we've got a huge chunk of 4 games coming in where boys will get opportunity, but hopefully we'll still have something to play for where they can get a couple of results, and then you can get the sort of spurt you want to the back end. And it's easier when you're winning as well. If there's a role going on and a trophy at stake, the players invariably find fitness and motivation.
So top of the Pro 12, very slim chance of progressing in Europe. Where does this game rank in terms of the whole season?
I think if we won it well, and you're going into the Treviso game the week after with something to play for, again, it's the next big game. I'm not going to lie, we looked at the Dragons game as a big one for us. We absolutely needed that 4 points to nestle in around that top 4. We see ourselves 13 games in, top of the league, one more games than any other side in the league. You know, that everyone's played everyone. There's been a couple of double-ups. We're credible challengers, and you know, we really want to have a good go at the league. We'll take Europe and see what happens. You know, if a miracle happens, we'd certainly seize it and give it our all. You know, but realistically, we've said that, you know, this year the league could be something we can aspire for. You know, Europe might be a year, 2 years down the line if we can build more depth.
It's the top of the Pro, you know, now that Europe is a competition between leagues, not countries, top of the Pro 12 against the top of the English. People are going to draw, yeah, if you lost at home, if they doubled you, people are going to draw conclusions about the strength of the two leagues. Is going to be a bigger issue than just you against Northampton. Is that how do you see it like that? And would people be right to do that?
Possibly. I just see it for us as another big Anglo-Welsh game, and I think we've really enjoyed some of those over the last few years. The Northampton games, results haven't gone our way, you know, but you know, last year we were competitive in both, really pushed one of the best sides in England and Europe to the hilt. Leicester we've pushed to the hilt over the last few years, so we're thereabouts. We're not singing from the rooftops that, you know, we're a super top European side. We're just a side that's building hopefully some depth and a group that's coming through that, you know, can be one of Europe's, you know, foremost sides. And I think then perhaps, you know, the league competition can complement that, as you know, sides like Leinster, Munster, Ulster constantly show, and we've got to try and do that as well.
And last year in this situation, if you could have won this game and got second, you'd have a very good chance of going into something, maybe the Amber. Now that that avenue's been taken away, you simply have to go on in the main competitions. That actually devalue it a bit, that it gives you less to play for this stage?
No, I think it's the, you know, the European, the top end cup now, for the reason there's no, you know, sort of safety door you can go through. It's about, you know, competing with the best, you know, and trying to beat the best. And we responded well to that challenge against Racing. It's a huge physical sides with obviously money being thrown at it, and you know, some world-class players in that group. And you know, we want to be playing at this level. You know, it's why I think sides are competing to qualify in the league itself now. This year is around top 6, and we want to be there year in, year out. And as I said, this year it may not be good enough, but down the line we feel we've got a side, you know, and boys are re-signing contracts with the intention that with a bit more depth that maybe we can compete in the near future.
Gruff, can you fix your scrum in a week?
I can't, I'm a backs coach.
No. As a son.
I wouldn't say, I mean, the scrum isn't broken. I thought they did really well to problem solve again on the hoof. You know, Chris Gibbs is sending messages galore to individual players. Sometimes it's just around repeat learning, and you know, I see it sometimes in skill execution that under pressure players can revert to type, and those may be bad habits, and I think that will happen in one or two instances. You've just got to drive a culture and environment that is constant learning, and I think we're not a group that just turns up and just does things for the sake of it. Everything we do in training is specific towards an individual player getting better, or the unit or team, and that's what we try and drive as a group of coaches. And you know, somewhere down the line you want response from that.
Griff, do you think the fact that the Celtic sides now have to, Pro 12 teams now have to finish in the top 6 to qualify for Europe, most of them now are struggling. They're not as doing as well as they have done in the past in Europe. Is that becoming a challenge now, a new challenge that the Pro 12 teams are facing to compete on, really compete on two fronts? You look at Munster, lost games, Leinster, Ulster, themselves.
I don't know, perhaps it's a chicken and egg almost. You've raised the bar perhaps for sides lower to middle around the league to actually aspire to something. You see Edinburgh and Connacht are the sides in particular who've probably gained those results against your Munsters and your Leinsters. So there's your turnaround in points. You know, I think there's been perhaps a couple of coaching changeovers in Ireland as well, which, you know, may hinder or help certain teams. But you know, for me, you know, the Leinsters and Munsters are still, you know, huge competitors in the league, and I think huge challenges in Europe. I think, you know, the Leinster certainly go through to those quarters, and who knows then.